5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
You're listening to Tabletop and Beyond with your host, Justin,
But before we get started, how was your Geek Week?
and co-hosts Dan and Jason.
You have to be willing to let the dice help you tell the story.
Okay, look, this year I'm going to stop mispronouncing words. Join us as we cover board games to war games and beyond.
Welcome back to Tabletop and Beyond. I am your host, Justin. I am here with the incredible Jason.
Hey!
Welcome back, my friend.
That's right. I jumped you.
We're missing Dan. He's so busy with his life. So busy.
Yeah, we both know how it is, though.
Yes, it's true. It's true. So busy with our lives. But alas, here we are, though. And
We
ready
are.
to
Let's
talk
have an
gaming.
episode.
Yes, sir. So today we are going to talk about RPGs. Shocker.
You know, we should give a right. What's this podcast about? We should give a little a little enticement as to what's coming soon in terms of partnership affiliation.
Oh.
Let's not say what it really is, just that something's coming.
Maybe I can give a hint. Hold on.
Give a hint.
I'm going to give a hint.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to move the microphone. First, here's my hint. That's one hint.
Okay.
Okay, and here's hint number 2. Did that work?
I hope so.
Was that a pretty good hint?
That's a pretty good hint. Yeah. So stay tuned because very soon we're actually opening an affiliation or a partnership with
Yep.
something related to that hint. That,
To that hint.
we're gonna explore taking it to the next level with Patreon and potentially giving some access to this hint, what this hint is referring to our Patreon. So let's have some fun with it.
Hint number 3.
Hint number 3. Stay tuned.
Yeah, okay. So, if you listen to this show, you'll know that this hint is an important part of everything that we do here.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Everything.
we're very close. We just have to sign the documents.
Yep. We got to sign our lives away. That's it.
We need to cross all our T's and dot all of our lowercase J's.
That's right.
Do you
That's
remember
right. Cross our eyes and dot our T's, and then we'll be
Yeah.
done.
Do you remember Wayne's World?
Yeah.
Like when they're going to sign it and the dude's got the glass eye, and they're like, yep, all we just need to do is just cross the T's and dot the lowercase J's. So funny. Great times. That's an old reference to hopefully half of our audience that may get it.
Yeah.
Well, let's be honest with ourselves. It's probably most of our audience gets it because what kids listen to us?
Right.
Probably none.
Yeah.
My daughter thinks we're weird, so she
Yeah,
wouldn't
well,
get the reference anyway.
Our podcast should be 5 seconds long in a series of TikToks. Then we'd get the younger generation.
That's just it. And they'd be like, what are they talking about?
Yeah. Well, that's too long.
As long as Dan's doing a dance.
Right. Speaking of
So-
Dan, he's not here with us today, but we do have a few news we'll get to in a little bit.
We do. Until then, how was your Geek Week, Jason?
I had a fun geek week. I spent a lot of time initially down in my basement over the holiday weekend, building the terrain for my Kill Team Chilneth. And
It's about time.
Yep, about time. And painting it. And interestingly, as I actually opened this box I have had on my shelf for quite some time, I'll know it was last year. Actually, it was before this time last year that box was made. I realized that box is not really a starter box. It's more of a, what do you call it? Like a supplement or an expansion. It's an expansion because it has terrain. It has 2 kill teams.
Yep.
And it has a book for scenarios around the terrain and those kill teams. But
Yep.
it doesn't have the full rules for those kill teams.
No.
And it doesn't have the markers, the tokens, the measuring tools that normally come in what you would consider like an intro box for it, which is fine. And it makes sense because the price is actually lower on that box than the other boxes. And now I understand kind of why the price is lower. But I still think it's a good deal because you get some really good models for the Adeptus Sororitas and the Tau, and the terrain is absolutely lovely. So
It's
I've really
amazing.
enjoyed it. Yep.
You're showing pictures of that. I found out that the terminology, and I just learned this the other day.
Okay.
Apparently, my Octarius box that I got that had the rules and all the measurement tools and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
That is what is called a launch box.
For
And
like
then-
the season or
Yes,
the
yes. And then what you got is called a starter box.
Okay, so terminology. So
Yes. So
launch
you gotta
box
start,
has everything you need to play.
Yep.
Starter box, you technically need some supplemental materials to have a full game.
right, and then there's the individual boxes where you get like the individual, like
Yeah,
kill
the
teams,
kill teams
or the
themselves, yeah.
terrain separately or whatever.
Yeah.
So I did
still
not
think it-
know that.
Yeah, I still think it's a good deal. I think you can get this box for like somewhere around $100 right now, which
Yeah.
isn't bad for the terrain itself. The terrain and then the 2 kill teams. It's
Yeah.
actually a pretty good price in my opinion.
I mean, I think that each kill team, the Tau one and the Sisters of Battle, I think they're running about $50 each. So
Yeah, so it's definitely, if you're interested in the Tau and the sisters, it's definitely better just to buy this box if you can find one. I don't think they are getting a little less available, but the price is still very reasonable in my opinion.
yeah, totally.
Anyway, so that was my first thing I did in my basement, and I grim darked it. I love the aesthetic from our friend we've had on the podcast, Zach Castigonis.
It's Owen.
Yes,
Kendall,
Owen.
Kendall Oates.
So, but anyways, I love his aesthetic. I think it makes sense to me. I was talking to my friends, like if I want to play a game that's in the 40K, then these dudes have been living in their armor behind enemy lines for months. So their armor is not going to look pristine like they got out of the shower when they hit the battlefield, in my opinion. So I love the dark, grimy look. It's a little desaturated, but to me that's okay. When I was painting my Tau, I put some nice blue into it that I think helps it pop when it's on the battlefield a little
Nice,
bit to give it
nice.
that distinction. But we'll see. I really like the grimy look, and I think it plays to the aesthetic of you're playing in some war-torn battlescape.
Yeah,
In my opinion.
nice.
But the second thing that I did was I have had my eye on a game on Steam called Other Side for a long time now. That game was released originally in July of 2020 by an indie company called Lightbulb Crew, who developed it. Actually, Focus Home Interactive is the publisher.
Okay.
It is a turn-based tactics, kind of into-the-world, reliving memories games. It's
Okay.
roguelike. It's very punishing. To give you a sense of that, when you play the game, it's in the future where the world basically has collapsed, and you are some supernatural kind of mother that can create daughters, that can germinate. Literally, that's the word, germinate. You can germinate daughters from your own kind of blood. And those daughters, when you make a new daughter, it has, kind of different skills that you can develop and you can level up as you play missions with them. But the daughters never heal. The only way to heal a daughter is by sacrificing another daughter.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so it's the graphical aesthetic is very good. So like you look at these daughters and like I immediately have an emotional connection to them, and like I can't believe I have to sacrifice one to heal another. It's just and it's very punishing. It's turn-based, it's tactic, it's turn-based. You have all the time in the world to decide what you want to do. But if you make one wrong tactical mistake, you will lose a daughter. So you can spawn new daughters, but you have to win battles to get points, like kind of blood points, in order to spawn new daughters or level up daughters. So you can tell if things start to go south, and they go south really quickly. You can get kind of stuck in a rut to where you'll ultimately never be able to get the points to keep spawning daughters and fail, and you'll eventually fail the kind of thing. But failure, it is a forgiving in the sense that when you do ultimately like totally fail, like wipe out your everybody, you have nobody,
Yeah.
You start over completely, but you have a couple things that stay with you. So it kind of helps you kind of grow some strength to get a little bit better. But the main thing, and as in all rogue games, the main thing you keep with you is your knowledge of how to tactically play the game better, right? So you do a little bit better next time. But it's on sale right now for like $12. I think it's originally like a $30 or $40 game.
That's a
It's
good
an
deal.
indie game, so it's not, it is what it is. But if you like tactic-based roguelike turn games, it's a good one to check out. Check it out.
Sacrificing your children.
And sacrificing your children, who give their all for you.
That's right.
That's right.
Hello, mother.
Yes. Anyways, that was my Geek Week. What about you,
Very
man?
good. I had a pretty good Geek Week, my friend. It was the Nova Open.
Oh, that's right. I was there
You were there for part of it, at least.
for one of it. Yeah, one of the days.
We had a Warcry tournament that I ran and you participated in. You
I
got
did.
second place, my friend.
Second place. It was fun. Yep.
I have a plaque in my car for you
Oh, really?
for best general.
Nice.
Yeah, because I gave the best overall to Justin Orton, so that would give you best general.
Oh,
Right.
cool.
And I have a best painting for Andy's Beastman army
Yeah.
that he won.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was thinking if we were going to talk about that as a podcast, but I think we'll probably save that for our next Winning Warcry.
yeah,
episode.
we'll get more into it. But I did end up playing in the Age of Sigmar Grand Tournament.
Yeah.
It was 2 days, obviously 5 games over 2 days. The top 8 had to play another three games, so I was just wiped out playing 8 games. Making
That's
it to the top
crazy,
8.
man. 8 games.
I know.
I mean, it
first
doesn't
off,
sound like
Yeah.
that much, but that is a lot of strategical thinking.
It
you
is,
know?
and to be fair, to be perfectly honest, I didn't even come close to making the top 8. But
Yeah.
but after, let's see, I played 3 games on Friday, and we started at 9 a.m. is when dice were starting to roll, and we finished at 8 p.m. And I drove home after that, and I got home, and my family was watching some movies or something like that, and it was like, by the time I got home, it was like 10:30, and then after talking with them for a little bit, it was like 11, and they're like, let's watch the Lord of the Rings show, and I'm like, I don't know, guys, I'm pretty tired. I'm like, please. I'm like, fine, turn it on. Like within 5 minutes, I was out. I was so tired, like mentally wiped out from just 3 games. Our friend Caleb Walters, he played 4 games on Thursday, 3 games on Friday, 3 games on Saturday, and 2 games on Sunday,
And then died.
and then died. So he played 12 games over 4 days, which is like 3 games a day.
It's Caleb, right? He's got the
Yeah.
mind for it. He knows the game. He can
Yep.
just sit and play it. But
But
oh
he
my
had some
gosh.
intense games. He's had some really intense games. So I was talking to him today, and he's wiped out. Like I'm gonna get him on the podcast for our next Age of Sigmar episode, because he took second in the Invitational, which is like the top 16 players in the country, right? 12 of the top players in the country. Like you had to basically go 5-0 at a grand tournament
Yeah.
to make the Invitational, So he took second in that, and then he won overall grand tournament. So
I mean,
like,
he
yeah,
is.
did awesome.
Did he play his Zeech?
Yes.
Yeah. He's like the number 1 Zeech player in the
Yeah, by a long margin.
yeah would you say in the world?
Maybe. Honestly, maybe.
I bet he could be
Yeah.
if he went.
Yeah.
I bet he could be if he went into some of those other tournaments.
Yep. Yep.
He knows the game, man.
Yeah, I
And-
mean, he
and
won
I'll
the
tell you what.
Warhammer Open last year, like
It's-
the
it's-
entire U.S. Open.
Well, and it's because he plays 12 games in a weekend.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I the last thing I did for the Nova Open was I took a painting class from Devin Meyer. We're gonna get him on the podcast because this was a very enlightening painting class for me, and not really like in the way that you would think. Everything that was taught to me in that class, it was like a 5-hour painting class. Everything that was taught to me in that class, I had seen over YouTube. I knew the theory. I've read about it. Like I've done all that, but it was just sitting in that class that he kind of pulled it all together. That all of a sudden, like all the connections were made, and the light bulb went off in my head, and I'm like, bing, and I felt like a much better painter.
Is this
In
one where
that
you
moment.
painted the bust?
Yes.
That was a 5-hour class, really.
Yeah. So here's
Wow.
the thing, though, is that we spent like the first hour just on light theory, like how light affects what you're seeing. You know what I
Ah,
mean? And
yeah,
color
yeah,
and all
yeah.
that stuff. And then we went out and we primed our busts, and he showed us how to prime them to get the light that you wanted. You know, because we did zenithal highlighting. Some people did genithal, which is like light coming up from below, like something's glowing from below, you know, or something like that. And then we talked about object source lighting. Then those are like the 3 light sources that you can have while painting.
Mhm.
So, so we did that for a little bit, and then we did some sketch art, which was, I thought, really interesting. So basically, he helped us set up our wet palettes, which again was good because like I've seen how to do it on YouTube, and he's like, "Dude, you got way too much water going on here. Like you're swimming." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, I have that all the time, you know." So, he showed us that, and then we kind of made our little spectrum of black and white. You know, and so we had like black on one side, white on one side, and it was great, like different shades of gray in the middle, you know. And then we just basically took that zenithal highlight that we had primed, and we sketch blocked it in. So on the whitest parts we put white, and on the darkest parts we put black, and on the medium parts we put gray, and then we kind of blended it all together. And once we got into a really happy place with that, he said, "Okay, let's do color now." And so we did kind of the same thing, but color, and that gave us a roadmap, you know, to paint. And so. Dude, he's like, "Okay, well, the class is over." I'm like, "Already?" Like, it did not feel like I was doing that for a long time. You know what I mean? Like, I could have, and I was just so into it. I could have been doing that for another 5 hours and probably not complained.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
I think we've talked to him about doing like a local thing, right?
Yeah, I think what would be good is if he did his beginner's class, because he goes over a lot of that same stuff, but at kind of a beginner's level. And I think that we have a lot of people in our group that could benefit from sort of the, you know, beginner art class before they got into like the bus class. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
For sure.
which would be good. So anyway, that was the Nova Open. I think next year, I'm not gonna do the grand tournament. I think I'd rather do a Warcry Day, a Kill Team Day, a Painting Day, and then like the RTT, like the 3 game 1-day tournament.
Yeah, I'm excited for Kill Team. The last guy I played in the Warcry GT that you ran was a Kill Team guy, and he was highly recommending. He says if you like very thematic based games, says Kill Team can have a very good thematic feel to it.
That's cool. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to see.
Yeah, very good. The other thing that I've been doing just to kind of get prepped for like maybe coming up with a little bit of a Blackbirds campaign, I've been reading the Black Company books by Glenn Cook. They're a little bit older, written in the 90s. I don't think I mentioned this on the show. I think I said I was going to start reading that, but I've been reading it, and it's a different style of book. Like, you have to like the writing. Some people hate it. It's written more like a war journal than like a sort of prose typical fantasy book. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of jumpy a little bit,
Yeah.
and like it'll be like go from scene to scene, but it's like hard breaks, like as if you're reading a journal. You know what I mean? Where it's like it's not going to go through every moment of every day. It just hits like the highlights.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it feels like you're reading. I mean, the main character that you're following, he's the doctor of the group essentially, and everybody kind of looks to him like is like, you know, like, well, he's the doc, so he gets included on a lot of missions that they go on and stuff like that. And so you're kind of seeing it through his eyes, and again, it's kind of jumpy. Like the writing's like kind of short, like you were just like writing down in your journal. Like you're not gonna like have perfectly crafted sentences and things like that. You know what I mean? So I like it though. It's good, and it's perfect for this Blackbird stuff. Like I've already got ideas on how to like steal some themes and ideas from this book to make a interesting campaign if I wanted to. So it'd be very cool. So yeah, anyway, all right, that's my Geek Week, dude.
Cool.
So since Dan is out, the good news though is that we still are going to be doing news. News. Sorry, Dan, we had to do it without you, buddy.
Yep.
All right, so the first one up is that Cthulhu or Chaosium, has announced that they will be releasing Regency England. It is a time of social niceties, grand balls, romantic intrigues, and disappointments, as described in the novels of Jane Austen. Yet, through the lens of the Cthulhu mythos, horrors weave themselves into the hearts of everyday Georgians, from the richest to the poorest. Step into the Regency area and work to uncover the dark secrets at the heart of Terryford. Twisted horrors that have lain dormant for centuries now seek to burst forth into England.
This will be interesting. You know, I don't-
So, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you first.
I was going to say, like, this sounds like Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters and Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, right?
Or Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter.
Which was actually a decent book. I kind of
Yeah.
like that one.
Yeah.
The movie was terrible, but the book, man, it was awesome.
It's interesting. Number one, Cthulhu has almost always been in the 1920s to 1930s.
Yeah,
Or I'll
that's
say
his
the-
bread and butter.
Yep, right. So it's kind of the feeling that you've always had with it. Now, there's been more modern adaptations of pulling the mythos into more modern settings, but I don't know if I've ever seen Cthulhu pushed backwards into the 1800s.
So they do have, they've had this for a while, which is along Dusty Trails or Dark Dusty Trails, something like that. And it was basically a Western Cthulhu campaign that you could run. And it was like 1800s cowboys in Cthulhu, which is
Huh.
kind of interesting.
Interesting.
So they've had different time periods for sure. The 1920s definitely been a big one. 1950s is another era that they seem to explore, right? Because
Yeah.
again, like technology totally hasn't caught up to where it's like not modern day type stuff, and so it's hard. Communication's a little bit difficult. You can't just call your cell phone and be like, "Get out of the house," or whatever. So, yeah, but Jane Austen, England, you're talking mid 1800s,
Yeah.
usually. Early 1800s even,
It'll be interesting. I'm not sure if it's my bag.
Here's the question.
Yeah.
Could you get your wives and girlfriends to play this with you?
I don't know. It's like,
Is that the gimmick behind this? Is to get your wives and girlfriends to play it?
I don't know, man. I mean, my wife's a big Jane Austen fan, but
I mean,
I don't know.
What if she gets to play Elizabeth?
I don't know, man.
And you play Mr. Darcy.
and there just happens to be a demonic influence at play.
So weird.
Or a cult influence at play. I don't know, man. There's, it could be interesting. Maybe could convince. We have a card game called Marrying Mr. Darcy.
Oh, right. Tell
It's
me about that.
actually a fun card game, but it's a asymmetric kind of. I don't even know how to describe the game. It's got a mechanic I haven't really played before in other games. It's fun. But even that, I can't really get her to play it because it's not as simple as just like Uno.
Oh.
Or, it's like,
Well,
hey,
and
this
you
is
have
this
been-
is skinned just with all the things you like. Okay, and then she starts playing. She's like, there's so many rules and mechanics.
It's how my wife refers to these types of games as my games. Oh, that's
There-
your game. That's your kind of a game.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I got a don't tell Dan this, and maybe he'll listen to the episode, but I got a free copy of Mythic, Super Fantasy Brawl.
Yep.
So yeah, I got a free copy of that, and I said, hey, this is a game that the family can play. It's really not that hard. Sophie played it with me one time, and my wife says, "Go put it on a shelf with your games."
There you go.
That's what she said. So I said,
Yep.
"Okay, well, there goes playing it with the family."
Yeah, good
So.
times, good times. I will tell you this tangent. We did play the Kenny G game.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and it was fun. We
Was
played
it?
Yeah, we played it with our Annie and I and our two little girls. It's keeping it sexy.
Kenny G, keeping it
Yeah,
sexy.
up and we failed. Kenny G lost his groove.
Oh no, that's not
Yeah.
good. Was
But
it
anyway.
along the same kind of enjoyability as Bob Ross, The Art of Chill?
Yes, I would say it was way more simple than Bob Ross.
Okay.
It's a pretty darn simple game. You're basically at the root of the game. You're just matching colors. You're drawing cards, and everybody's trying to match colors in a certain sequence to pass events. And it's just skinned with Kenny G hits. He hits traffic at 9 a.m. and it's starting to take his groove down. How do you bring his groove back? It's like, well, let's give him some D-whoop, which is really just the color blue, right?
No, nice. Okay.
But anyways. But
I like
yeah,
it.
yeah, that's a little bit of a
pretty
side
good.
tangent. But anyways.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right. The second news item is a legend is reborn. Free League today. Oh man, I'm really bad at this. Okay, a legend is reborn. Free League today launched the Kickstarter for Dragonbane, Drakar och Demoner. I think that's a Swedish name for it. A new and reimagined edition of Sweden's first and biggest tabletop role-playing game. The highly anticipated fantasy game was funded in just 4 minutes. The new edition has already raised more than $100,000 during the first hour, with 23 days to go. So, I believe that when Tomas Herenstam was on our podcast about 2 months ago,
About 2 months.
When we're talking about Blade Runner, we asked what his biggest influences were, and he said this game specifically was the one that he played with all of his friends when he was younger.
Was it this one? I know it was a fantasy one. I know he had. There's another one that they have republished a few times. But anyways, yeah. Gosh, what was it? They got what's another? There's another old one that they have that they have published for a while that they redone. I can't remember. Anyways, maybe it was this one. But anyways, interesting. I will say that I think Free League makes amazing quality material. Like
Yes.
their art, their game system is fun and easy. It's innovative. It feels different, but it feels accessible
Yeah.
at the same time. I think that the art in this looks gorgeous. It's the same artist that did their Vaesen game, so it looks good. The fact that it was funded in 4 minutes is nothing special to me now. It's like that happens all the time with any company that has any amount of a significant following. It's going to
Right.
get funded in the first 10 minutes.
Right.
It's-
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I mean, especially since if you think about it, like probably the level that they were funding it at. Here, I'm going to pull it up real quick. I was going to suggest that like the $100 level is probably what people are doing. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
somewhere around there.
Mhm.
And like that for $100,000, that just means 1,000 people signed up for like around that level.
Yeah.
You know, and let's see the core box set. I'm looking at this project right now. All right, oh man, come on, give it to me in U.S. dollars, because I have no idea what this is. All right,
Right.
man, show it to me in U.S. dollars. How do I do that?
You go to Google and you type KR to or SEC to.
I guess it's 10 to 1.
10 to 1.
$5.
It's
is
about the
50
right, yeah.
SEK. Okay.
Yeah.
So for about $25, you can get the digital edition that has 334 backers. For $37, you can get the core box set, which actually is pretty good. That's
Oh
pretty
yeah,
good.
they have really reasonably priced core box
Yeah.
sets.
So
They're good company.
yeah. So and in you get it in PDF format as well. So you get the core box set. I don't know what's totally in that.
Yeah, I think we've very quickly been becoming a fan of this company because of how accessible their material is to
Yeah.
the community. It's not like you don't have to drop tons of money to get playing, and they provide so much good, and we'll talk about this actually a little bit later as we get into our main topic. They provide so much good intro, resources to kick you into the game system. It makes it very easy to get going with a low investment.
Yeah, so for about $75, This is kind of the $100 level I was talking about. But for $75, you get the core box set, the PDF, a Game Master screen, and a cloth that you can put on your table.
A cloth.
Yeah, honorable mention
What?
and whatever stretch goals they have. By the way, I'm looking at this. There's a quick start guide right now in PDF that you can download
Yeah,
and
you
start
can
playing
get it right from the website. Yep.
from the Kickstart. Like, let's go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
So, for $93, get this. This is crazy. $93. It's the retailer bundle. You can get 5 core box sets for $93,
Yeah.
which is like $20 a box. So
Yep.
if you and 4 friends want the box set, you could all go in together and do it.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
pretty good. Pretty, like I said, accessible.
Very accessible. It looks really good. Like oh man, it looks fun. It looks fun. This looks fun. People should. All right, everybody.
It's the art. The art is gorgeous.
It is amazing.
You look at art and you think, I want to play in that world.
Well, okay. So I just saw this, and the way that they had the font, it said 250,000 SEK, but it looked like sex. 250,000 SEK.
Okay.
This is a family show, so they wouldn't put that on there. But yeah, wow, they've got initiative. You can get stretch goals, which include like character sheets and initiative cards.
Yeah,
That's
they're
kinda
really good
cool.
about like providing those extra things like little cards, skill cards, equipment cards, those fun things you can hand out to people. It's like, you got an axe. Oh, here it is. Oh, cool.
Yeah, a battle map if they get.
Dude, their maps are really good materials. Not just like thin paper that's going to
Yeah.
tear. It's like thick, really heavy grade material.
If they get up to $900,000, you can get a full conversion of Dragonbane on Foundry Virtual Tabletop, like ready to go. So if you want to play it digitally,
Yep, there
that's
you
pretty
go.
cool. Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, there's just so much good stuff, and of course you can add in stuff like the Alien RPG, Tales from the Loop, Forbidden Lands, Vaesen, like the One Ring. You can add those in, and like it just reduces the amount of shipping that you'd have to pay. You know, so man, there's some. I think it looks amazing. I almost convinced myself to back it, even though we have a friend that's already backed it. So it's really good
Mhm.
looking. Keep up the good work, Free League Publishing, because like every time I see your stuff, I'm amazed. I'm amazed.
Yes, sir.
So, all right, very good. All right, what's our last thing?
Dragonfall.
Dragonfall Convention, 22 to 23 October. Be there, be there, be there.
You going?
I think, probably not.
Yeah, burned all the brownie points with Gen Con
That's
and Nova Open.
Pretty much. My wife turned to me the other day and she's like, "I feel like you're never here," and I'm like, "Uh-oh." Okay.
Yep.
She
Ooh,
said that
that's,
after she discovered that we're having our Aliens RPG session on Friday night.
Oh no.
I know, and I'm like, I'm here today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right. She's going to the beach in like October. with
That's
her
right.
wife.
I think my wife's going on that trip too.
She is. Yeah. Yep. So what's happening?
Which
at
means more gaming
Dragonfall?
for us
Yes, it does.
while the wives are gone.
Dragonfall Charity Gaming Festival. Charity. It's like a monster truck rally. They've obviously got 40K that they're playing. They obviously got Age of Sigmar they playing. They obviously got Kings of War, obviously. They're playing Flames of War, the World War II miniatures game. Team Yankee, that's World War III, which hasn't happened yet. So maybe that's just a preview of things to come. They've got Corvus Bell Infinity that they're playing. They've got an Infinity narrative event. Marvel Crisis Protocol, which, dude, I hear was really hot at Nova Open, by the way. A lot of people were loving playing Marvel Crisis Protocol. We should try it sometime. Have you tried that before?
I have not tried it. We do have one friend in our Discord that in New Mexico that is big into painting and collecting the cards and all that stuff.
I don't think he's doing this one, though. I think he's doing
Isn't
the
that doing
Marvels
Crisis?
United.
Oh,
He's
I
doing
think you're
Marvel
right.
United.
He's United. Yep.
Yep. So, I know that our new guy in the Discord, Devin, sells this for a pretty good price. But I don't know.
And he's also selling the whole United set.
Yes, for a really good price.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Check out our Discord, folks.
That's right. That's right. X-Wing tournament that they got, Song of Ice and Fire, BattleTech,
And RPGs.
and a whole bunch of RPGs. And I learned about this because I saw Sam Lenz, who's an artist that I love to follow. He's really good stuff. He's going to be teaching 3 classes: Intro to Freehand, Paint a Sword, which I've taken his Paint a Sword class. I've also taken his Intro to Freehand class as well. And he's doing some semi-private lessons.
Wow.
So, yeah, pretty good. Yeah, pretty good.
Well,
so
cool.
It sounds like fun. If you're in the area, it's in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin.
If you're in the area, yes.
Yeah, it's actually October 23rd from 7 a.m. to October 24th to 7 a.m. That's just 24 hours? Okay. 24
That's not
hours of gaming. All right. That's a weird time to end, I think, don't you? At 7 a.m.?
Yeah, maybe we might be reading that wrong.
I don't know, dude. It says it right in the front. October 23rd, 7 a.m. to October 24th, 7. Maybe it's like a 24-hour game-a-thon.
Really?
You know, maybe.
Details.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah. It looks like it's just a 24-hour game-a-thon.
24 hours to go.
I want to be. Okay. So,
Okay, that's interesting.
yeah, no. So the for example, the 40K championship is Saturday and Sunday, all day Saturday and all day Sunday. So that just must be a goof up.
Okay.
Yeah, same with the AOS. It's all day Saturday and all day Sunday. It looks like it's TBD right now. They're still figuring out the dates.
Oh, well. They've got October 22nd to 23rd everywhere.
There you
Grand
go.
Geneva Resort, Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Wisconsin. All right. All right.
That's it for our news.
That's it for our news. Hopefully you enjoyed it. So, all right. What are we talking about today, Jason?
We're talking about new stuff.
New stuff. We
How
just
do you
talked about
pull
the
in?
news.
How do you quickly learn a new system if you're interested in running it with your gaming group?
I feel like, Jason, we've got some experience in this.
Lots, man. We've played with lots of different systems.
Yeah. You ran Firefly at one point, right?
Yep. And this was the
Uh,
original Firefly RPG, not the new one that they have today.
Oh, I didn't know they had a new Firefly
Yes,
RPG.
there
did they?
was a prior one.
Oh wow, interesting. Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, we've run Shout of the Demon Lord that we had to learn, right? I've run Call of Cthulhu. I've run. I mean, I learned D&D, right? I learned it. What else have we run? Rune Quest was one that we tried out.
Yep, Mothership's a big one. Did you say that
Yeah,
one already? But
I
yeah.
did not. You're planning one this Friday, right?
Yeah, we're gonna run Alien from Free League Publishing this Friday.
Yep.
The
Excited
cinematic.
about that.
That should be
Excited about
fun.
that.
Exciting.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of experience running this stuff, and so, you know, why might you want to learn to run a new system? Well, there are things beyond D&D.
Beyond.
That's not D&D Beyond. There
Yeah.
are things beyond D&D Beyond.
Yeah, and I think that's the I always try, because whenever I talk with people that find out, oh, you're a gamer? Like, do you play Dungeons and Dragons? It's like, I've played that game.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, but
yeah, it's okay.
it's okay. They're like, oh, that's what everybody plays. It's like, well, let me talk to you a little bit about a little podcast we got going on here. But
Right.
it's, there are so many other things out there that so many people aren't aware of. And to their credit, Wizards of the Coast
Yes.
has done a good job with their their product in
Oh, yeah.
terms of branding and turning that brand into kind of the mass exposure. People who all they knew was Dungeons and Dragons. That's all they knew. I think Wizards has done a good job from their marketing standpoint of kind of locking that into people's brains.
Yeah.
Of role playing is Dungeons and Dragons, and unless you're like a heavy gamer like us who like goes to conventions, plays different systems, is always scraping the indie scene and everything, you might actually just think that role playing is just Dungeons and Dragons.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, it kind of blew my mind that RuneQuest was around just as long as Dungeons and Dragons.
70s. Yep.
Yeah, so 1976 is when it first came out.
Yep.
And you're like, whoa, that's been this long, and I'm just sort of now hearing about it. You know, like, I mean, I'd heard about it, but like, not really even thought about trying it. You know, and so, yeah, I mean, like, Wizards of the Coast, you're absolutely right. Like, Stranger Things has cemented Dungeons and Dragons in people's minds nowadays as like the role playing game. You know?
And to be fair, in that time frame, in the 80s time frame before the internet, Dungeons and Dragons was probably was the most accessible RPG. If you were gonna do that thing, it was probably the one that you would find, right? Because, you know, as you'd go into your bookstore in the mall,
Yep.
that's what you would see on the shelf. You wouldn't see really any of the indie stuff. And you know, this is pre-internet, accessibility to the market for these smaller systems. So
Right. Yeah. Can you imagine trying to advertise for these games without the internet now?
yeah, I mean, it would just be
Like,
conventions and game
conventions.
stores, conventions and local game stores. Which, you know, there were some, but not really a lot.
Right.
I remember when I was growing up, it was you know, and there could have been that I didn't know of, but really most of our game stuff was paired with either a baseball card. Like, I got my Magic cards in a baseball card store. They had like a tiny
Oh,
little
yeah.
box. They would just stock Magic cards. This is early 90s, right? They would
Yep.
stock Magic cards in the back corner because, yeah, there's just this thing. But it was mainly a baseball card store. And then my D&D books were in, like, I don't even remember, I'm sure it was not called a Barnes and Noble, but it was whatever, you know, whatever the bookstore was in the mall at that time. They had, you know, in the back corner, there were this little tiny section with under the Ravenloft and Dragonlance books, there were these a couple D&D modules you could get.
I remember seeing D&D stuff at the comic book store.
Yeah, or the comic book store. Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know,
That's another
and
place.
there was like Magic cards there and stuff like that. And then you'd find D&D stuff, but yeah. But even then, it wasn't that popular. So yeah, I mean, you get people. Okay, so people nowadays that like D&D is sort of like the Settlers of Catan into strategic games, right? It's like the starter drug, the one that gets you hooked on doing role playing games, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, soon that hit it doesn't scratch the itch anymore, right? Like, it doesn't give you the high that you're looking for. So maybe what's next? What else you got? You know, what other good stuff you got out there?
Yeah, and as we've talked about a lot, you know, there are many of other systems out there. So I guess, you know, the real question kind of becomes, how do you explore a new system without having to just like gather all of the material you can and spend, you know, weeks reading and pouring through material. Now, some people, that's totally your bag, you know, that just can't get enough. And if so, great, you know, but some of us like me, because we always want to try new systems, I can't really, and I have a life, you know, with kids and all that stuff. I can't just pour every night for 3 weeks into, you know, source material to try to learn a new system.
So, yeah, and when I asked you the question before we started the podcast, right, I said, like, you know, how do you quickly learn a new RPG system? You're like, well, you play it, duh.
Yeah, well, and I
know?
think if you're trying to learn it from a player's perspective, I think that is the best way.
It
It's,
is.
you know, and when you go to gaming conventions, you go to Gen Con, we try to learn. What was the one? What was the one the new system we did this time? With that very tiny source book with the guy. And,
Nowheresville.
yeah,
it was,
Nowhereville. You know, we sit at the table and the GM gives you kind of a quick overview. You look down at your character sheet. You're like, all right, well, let's just play.
Yeah, right.
And
exactly.
after about an hour of playing, it's like, okay, I understand.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? So I think this is important. I wanted to make this point because I think you play the games, you realize you like it, and then you want to run it. Okay, and so you're like, okay, I played this once and I kind of learned how it works, but now I need to like learn how to run it, which is a different thing. That happened with you and me in Shadow of the Demon Lord.
Oh, totally.
Remember,
Yeah.
like we played the game, we're like, dude, we're high fiving at the end. We're like, this is awesome, and we literally got on Amazon. I got on Amazon right outside of the convention. I'm like, I ordered this book. I ordered the source book because that was so much fun, and I want to run something with it, right? And so then I had to learn how to run the game because nobody else was going to learn it except for you and me.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody had to run it. Somebody had to run a campaign. So I pivoted from learning as a player to learning how to run it, and that's what I think we really want to talk about tonight, though.
Yeah.
Is like learning how to okay, so you maybe you got a Call of Cthulhu game in at a convention, or maybe you played Urban Shadows or something. How do you go about learning that so that you can take that game back home to your gaming group, basically? Right?
Yep.
So what are some things you got to review?
So I think, yeah. So starting point is what interested you in the game is probably the theme.
Yep.
Right? If some people mechanics may be what interested you, but I'm sure if this is a role playing game and you're a role playing player, it's probably the theme and the setting that brought you in. Initially, the general feel of the game. So I think that's a great starting point. If you're trying to say, I want to dive in and learn this, but I got this giant, let's say 350-page source book in front of me. Well, just spend some time scanning over the setting and what we've talked about before. What is part of a good setting of a role-playing system is it has a world building. But it has a threat that's there. Learn what the threat is. Learn what the setting is. Learn what the general feeling of the people who live inside this setting is, and that gives you an idea of what how you need to represent the world to the people that are playing with you.
No, I agree. Like you're gonna pick up a source book and you're gonna say, okay, Cthulhu's a mystery based game, mystery and horror, so you're gonna know like, all right, well, maybe this isn't about like epic combat here. This is about investigation and trying to figure out what the crap is going on before you go insane. Maybe you pick up Star Wars RPG and you're like, hey, I know what the Star Wars universe is like. It's wielding lightsabers and running around acting like heroes all day long and not being able to die. It's absolutely amazing.
Right.
And you pick up a game like The Witcher, and you're like, okay, this is going to be a little grimdarky, and I'm fighting monsters. This is a monster fighting book. So, okay, cool. Like you just getting to know the theme, because that will color how you prep the game as well. For example, I talked about reading the Black Company books because this Black Birds has this dark low fantasy feel about it, and I want to flavor more of that into my preparations. If I make a campaign or an adventure for it, I want to flavor that. So I'm reading more of those materials to bring in that theme and really expose that theme. As I look to that.
Yeah. And I think that's something you can scan quickly. Usually most of these source books, they have an intro chapter. Like the first chapter is establishing the scene. And so what I'll do is I'll pick a book and I'll just flip through and look at the pictures in that first chapter. Look at the picture, gives me an idea of the world I'm in, the feeling I'm in. And then I'll quickly kind of scan through the highlighted boxes, and hopefully, if it's a small material, just, look through that first chapter. You should be able to do it in a very quick time. And I usually don't focus on all of the crazy details, and I have to catch myself because I'll go through rabbit holes like with the Alien source book because, that material is so nostalgic to me. I'll say, well, all right, I want to get a quick setting view. I'll read it. Next thing I know, like 4 hours later, I'm deep into like this deep planet that my players will never ever see, and I'm like reading the history. I'm like, wait, what am I doing? I'm just, but. So don't be careful. Make sure you don't go down rabbit holes. Just scan it. If anything, just look through the pictures at that first chapter and kind of get a feel.
Yeah. And look, even if you go down the rabbit holes, enjoy it.
Hey, have fun with it, right? It's part of what this is all about, having a good time.
All right. Well, the hardest part, I think, for people to learn how to run a game is getting the mechanics under control.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because obviously you don't want to make it too easy, and if the RPG is done right, the mechanics bolster the theme. You know what I mean? They play into the theme. So, you know, again, I'm going back to Call of Cthulhu. There's several mechanics about how you go insane, or that test your sanity and things like that. You should know. You need to know those because that is part of the theme. Such a core element of the game that you really need to understand how that works.
You do, and this is probably the hardest part, right? Because I get worried that I'm going to hit a situation when I'm playing with my players where they're going to want to do something, and I'm not going to know exactly how that rule is run in this system. And then we're going to have to pause. We're going to have to step out of character for a minute and rummage through the book to figure out how this system mediates this. The best example is grappling. I feel like every game system I play, whenever anyone wants to grapple, everyone has to pause and be like, wait, how do we do this again?
I just always do strength versus strength. It doesn't matter what system.
I don't
like,
care.
Roll your strength, I'll roll my strength. Whoever wins, wins.
Yeah. But there's some systems that are so convoluted. It's like, okay,
It's
now
so
that you're
true.
grappled, okay, cool. So now that you've passed the check and you're holding on to him, let's roll another check to see if you have the ability to do anything while you're grappling. Like, wait,
Right.
what? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly.
okay, so then you're doing checks, nested checks inside nested checks. And you're just like, this, I'm just let go of them.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think obviously understanding how combat works, that's key. Understanding how the skill system checks work, right? So I want to jump over a log. That's important. I think you have to know though, like even before all of those things, you have to kind of know what kind of system you're running because I think RPGs are categorized into just a couple of basic systems or mechanics, and really it comes down to like what dice are you using. So Star Wars and Genesis are going to be using the narrative dice. You need to know how that works, right? If you're running RuneQuest, Cthulhu, Warhammer 40K, the Zweihander Apocalypse system. Those are all D100 games. D&D's a D20 game. You've got some 2D20 games, 2D6 games. Like, if you can understand the mechanics behind those, I think that you already put yourself in an advantage to understanding how the skill checks work. Because, like, for example, the D100 games, it's pretty much the same thing when I'm running Cthulhu as when I'm running Warhammer 40K, as when I'm running Blackbirds. Like, they're all pretty much the same. And so if you kind of know how that works, you can fudge a little bit if you're not 100% on the rules.
Yeah, and this should be like a call-out box on a page if this is a good system to tell you how do you roll dice? Like, how do you do something in the game? It should be like, this is the base mechanic. I mean, you should be able to figure it out real quick. But it gets back to, how do players describe their characters? How do they not describe? How do they define their characters, right? In D&D, you have your attributes, you have your and your skills, right?
Yeah.
In most games, you have something very similar to that. Some core set of scores, whether it be like strength or charisma, or in some systems, spirit, heart, mind, those kind of things. There's some core thing that all of the skills are kind of based off of. And this is interesting, actually, in the original Firefly RPG that we played, which was based off of the early Cortex system.
Okay.
The concept was kind of the same. You had some base core scores, and then based on what you wanted to do, skills were not tied. Like in D&D, a certain skill is tied to a specific base score or
an attribute, right? Yeah.
excuse me, attribute. It's the same with the Star Wars. It's the same with the Genesis system. You have a base skill that's tied to a core attribute.
Yeah.
In the original Firefly system, it wasn't like that. You had your base scores or attributes, we'll just call them. I think they were called something else, but attributes. And then depending on what you wanted to do, you would pick a skill you had and you would say, in this scenario, in this specific situation, I'm going to use the training I have in this skill, but I don't think it uses strength in this situation. I think it's going to use intellect or mind. And so then you would the GM would say, okay, help me understand why. You would say why, and you say, okay, go for it. Then you would take your mind score, you would add it to your skill score, then you would roll your dice. So I like the freedom of that system because you didn't. It wasn't like a skill was hard coded to a specific attribute. You could tweak it, and it gave you freedom and flexibility. But what I'm getting at is, while that system was a little different, it's the same basic approach. A skill typically involves, some sort of training score that you add to an attribute score. And it's not always add. Sometimes it's, a number of dice. Like if you're like in the free league, in some of the free league systems, you take your base score and that gives you a certain number of base dice. You grab those dice in your hand. Then you look at your train score and say, okay, that's I have this much training. You grab that many dice in your hand. So there's some sort of accumulation that's happening to make you better. So long rant, but the point is that it should be very quick to learn how players are defined in terms of attributes and scores.
Yep.
And how to use those to do things in the game.
And
once you get that down, then don't worry about the rest, because that's the point of role-playing is as you try to do stuff, just hold on to that basic thing. Even if you get something wrong, it doesn't matter at first. Roll the dice, try to use that base idea. And if something gets complex down the road, you can decide to simplify it in the moment, or you can decide if the time is right to take some time and open the book.
Yeah, it's funny because you talked about the book should tell you how to roll the dice. On page 16 and 17 of this Blackbirds book, it's all about how to roll the dice and how to read a D10. You know what I mean? Like, and one of the key things, you don't see this too often, but one of the key things is it says, if you roll the 0-0 on the tens die and a 1 on the units die, it's equal to 1. Because some people are like, oh, that's 100. You know what I mean? Or
that's
it's
that's the big hiccup with those
and so
dice.
It explains to you exactly okay, no, this is this and this, and it even has pictures that shows you, and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty good. Going back to the skills and attributes, the thing that I would just add there, and you kind of touch on this, once you know those things, then you can role play anything. And what I have found helpful is to take a character sheet myself, a blank one, and just put it in front of me so that if you're like, okay, you want to jump over the log and dive into the pool. Okay, what's that going to be? And you can look on the player sheet, the exact one that they're seeing, and be like, okay, that's going to be an athletics check. Or you could probably use dexterity here. Just because you can see what they're seeing as well. And ask for that check, because if you're like, oh, give me an acrobatics, and they're like, we're playing Cthulhu, am I a circus clown? I don't have acrobatics, but you're like, oh crap, that's a D&D one, So having a player sheet in front of you helps you oftentimes to know what you can ask for.
You can also just have them not roll the dice in some situations. It is a role-playing game. So,
it is true.
The dice, the mechanics are there to mediate situations that role-play doesn't push through. And we kind of have emphasized that many times.
But sometimes it's just fun to roll the dice and see them trip over the log.
It is.
Fall into the water.
It is. And in some systems like Genesis, the dice play a very important part of the narrative development of the game.
True.
So,
yeah. So, but yeah, I think understanding, again, like you said, how to roll the dice, how to map the skills to doing something. Those are two of the major, and also knowing what mechanics play into the theme, right? Like the sanity mechanic or the fear mechanic or the like those mechanics. You're going to be dealing with the stress mechanic in Aliens coming up, right? So because that's such a critical part of the game, you got to know how that works.
Yeah, and that's been a part that I have revisited over and over to try to get it kind of lodged in my skull.
Yeah.
is okay. I'll pretty much every other night I'll kind of remind myself, okay, how do we do stress again? Oh, that's right, because I know how stress occurs, but when does it get interesting? When
Right,
does stress
right.
get interesting? It gets interesting when this happens, and there's one table on this one page, and that's all I really need to know. Is I need to put a little bookmark or a sticky note on that part, and
Yeah,
then we can have fun with it.
Yeah, exactly. With Shadow of the Demon Lord, I knew page 35 was my bread and butter. That's the madness table for when you go crazy, right? And so page 35 in the book, like that's where you got to go to then have them roll a d20 and find out how crazy they got, So because fear was such an important part of how that worked. And like in Shadow of the Demon Lord, once you were afraid, that triggered other conditions, right? You could only go slow. You do slow turns. It triggered other conditions that happened. So just knowing how those mechanics worked for what was the theme of the game, I think is again, I'm harping on this, I know, but it was really important.
Yeah, so I think that's a good. I think those are good, and you can, depending on the complexity of the system, and some people really enjoy complex systems. There's nothing against that. You could spend a lot of time in the mechanics. I think you can very quickly get your theme, and then that
Yep.
theme will help you figure out what mechanics you need to pay attention to, because there's
Yep.
certain mechanics that are just going to be, they're just there to help when you can't seem to get through a scenario through role play, but other mechanics are going to be there to tie back to the theme, as you said, Justin.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what makes the games fun, right? Because I'm not going to try to learn how to do a lot of combat in Call of Cthulhu,
Right, yeah.
but I definitely want to learn how to do sanity checks, investigation checks. You know what I mean? Like those things are so important.
Yep. Yep.
So, yeah, very good. So all right. So you played a game. You know that you need to learn some of the mechanics and stuff like that. You know you need to learn some of the themes. How do you get into that? What are the resources that you need to learn how to run this game?
We talked about a few of these before the podcast started. I think most game systems today have a website
Mm-hmm.
with publisher content to get you started.
Like
don't-
free publisher content.
Downloads,
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to jump into that stuff immediately. In fact, that's what we're doing for Aliens. I bought a starter cinematic event,
Yeah.
and we're just gonna run it with pre-gens and everything.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have fun
Pre-gens
with
are
it.
amazing. Pre-gens are awesome because then you don't have to give too much thought into creating a character and stuff like that. You guys can just jump right in, and usually the pre-gens are optimized for a starter scenario so that everybody can have a lot of fun. And one of actually the very first D&D game that I think I ever played was when who was running it? Were you running it? was-
If you played it at SeanCon, it was me.
Yes. Yeah, it was that one. That was my first D&D game I ever played.
Oh, it was your
Um,
first D&D? That's
yeah.
awesome.
I know, right? You were my first, Jason.
All right. Continue
That
the
was-
story, please.
Yes, exactly. That was the one that Dan Flinton kept putting rats in people's
Oh,
pockets.
yes, that was so good.
It was so funny. Yeah, but that was the first one I played. But remember, like we all had pre-gen characters.
Yep.
You had this was the Horde of the Dragon Queen.
Horde of the Dragon
right?
Queen. Yep.
Yep, which was the starter kit. A lot of fun. Great little maps, right? Like it was just a ton of fun. And again, we were all balanced and optimized. Nobody was min-maxed with the pre-gens, so everybody's just having a good time with their character.
Pre-gens are also great because if you want to try a new system, there's no obligation for your friends to come over to your house to play. It's like, okay, well, do I need to get a book? Do I need to create a character? It's like, no, dude, just show up at 5 and bring money for pizza.
Right, exactly.
That's it.
Exactly. So, I want to talk about some starter boxes and stuff like that, but I do want to go back and hit on the publisher content. For example, D&D Beyond, you can go to D&D Beyond right now and download the free rules, which is pretty much the whole player handbook from what I saw.
Yeah, there
You
are
know?
some classes and feats and stuff that aren't in the basic rules, but it's a lot of.
You have more than enough to get started.
It's huge.
Go to Chaosium, and they have a free Cthulhu rules starter and adventure that you can download today and play with your friends tomorrow night if you wanted to. and pre-gens included. In fact, there's a great little one that's called The Haunting that I'm kind of wanting to run on Halloween. It's about a haunted house that you're stuck in.
Ooh,
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
should totally do a Halloween.
I know, right? It would be
Yep.
so much fun. And I'll get the candles and skull out again.
Yes.
So that'll be a lot of fun. But I mean that's on there. You can go to so many other places, and there's just like Chaosium again has a Pendragon free download, free adventure that you can play right now. So look, there's just so many options out there that you don't actually have to spend money on to see if you like the system. I think that's amazing. Like, we're living in the golden age of RPGs right now.
Mm-hmm.
So go out and take a look. Like, just find a company that's making the RPGs that you like and see what downloads they have out there that you can play. We literally just talked about playing the Free League Publishing one that's on their Kickstarter right now, the Dragonbane. You can go play that right now.
Yep.
So pretty cool. All right, so getting back to the pre-gen stuff, right? We talked about like getting the D&D starter box, Horde of the Dragon Queen. I have to give a shout out. I'm going to say this every time we talk about starter boxes. Call of Cthulhu starter box is the best deal in gaming. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's $20 to $25 depending on when you find it. And the amount of adventures that you get, the amount of handouts that you get, the maps, everything, like you have a 1 to 2 player scenario. You have a solo scenario that you can play that actually teaches you the game before you play it, which I think is like huge. I'll get back to that point in a minute. And then you have 2 full scenarios that you can play with for like 5 to 6 of your friends in there, and those are like full 4 to 5 hour session scenarios. So you're getting 3 straight out of the box playable scenarios with pre-gens, and also a solo play game that you can play, and all the handouts you need for like $25. Like, I have gotten probably 10 solid hours of playtime with my friends out of that one box. So that's $2.50 an hour that I paid.
Yep.
For that. Where can you find that kind of entertainment for that money? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And again, something that Chaosium does better than anyone I have ever seen: solo games that teach you as a DM how to create a character and play that character with
it's pretty cool.
like play by kind of choose your own adventure style game. So that when I got done doing the Call of Cthulhu and RuneQuest, I said, I understand this game's theme, I understand its mechanics, and I understand like really the core principles of what it's trying to do. Everything else is just gravy, and I knew how to run the game. So that I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of good stuff, like you said, golden age for RPGs right now. But I would say don't be afraid to look for that starter material,
Yeah.
Grab the starting material, grab the source material, look at the theme, look at the mechanics, then go out there to Drive Through RPG and find somebody's one shot, or go to the publisher and pull down their easy quick adventure and just run it. Don't feel like you gotta really homebrew a giant system. In fact, I
Yes.
would recommend against homebrew
I would too.
until you really decide, this is something my gaming group really wants to invest in.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're investing a lot of your time into a big fat maybe that maybe
Yep.
not a lot of people are interested in. In fact, I think that we decided that we wanted to run Shout of the Demon Lord after Gen Con 2018.
Yeah.
And I got 2 starter adventures for like $4. And I had bought the core book. So the core book was $40. I got 2 starter adventures for $4, not each, together, right? And we ran those first couple, and I had sort of done a little homebrew to supplement one of those, and like we were in it. We were having fun. So I didn't put out that much money to get into it, and we knew we liked it.
Yep, easy
And that
day.
took us to Granville.
Right.
You love Granville.
Yeah. Anyways, so publisher content, starter boxes, adventures on Drive Through RPG,
Yep.
And then don't forget about the giant community that's out there in the world with YouTube.
Oh yeah.
You know, obviously there's podcasts like ours that try to help you kind of make things more accessible to you. But go to YouTube, man, and look for people who've played. Look for people who are reviewing the systems. Unboxing the starter boxes.
Yeah, I feel like there's a YouTube video out there about starter box of Cthulhu.
Yeah, is there?
That's on there. That's on our. That's one of
That's
our
right.
#1 viewed videos on our YouTube channel. If you haven't seen our YouTube channel, you should check it out.
Yeah,
We need to put out more videos. But
there's like 3 videos.
but they're popular.
But they are popular videos. That's right.
Yeah, look at system reviews, look at our podcasts, look at actual play videos. You can find some of those on Twitch and on YouTube. You know, like you can find pretty much any system out there that's got someone doing an actual play. I cannot vouch for the quality of these sometimes because they might be boring
Sure.
as sin.
Yeah.
You know, but like sometimes, I mean, like Critical Role is like the gold star for actual play stuff, but I wouldn't compare many actual plays to Critical Role either. You know. So
Yeah. And when we say like most of our views in that video, we're talking like 140 views.
I mean, that's not bad.
That's not bad.
It's not bad.
But anyways, yeah. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go to YouTube. There's no obligation for you other than clicking that like and subscribe. But
And then falling down the YouTube rabbit hole to where you're watching,
that's right.
Russian misfires on, guns. You're like, how did I get here?
You know what? It's funny. What usually it starts with me is I'm looking up some game, and then the next thing I know, I'm watching those like 20-minute recaps of an entire video or entire movie where the guy like tells you the entire movie in 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, and it's
I
yes,
get down those holes so quickly.
You're like, what is this movie? And you realize it's some weird Chinese movie,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
And my wife will come in and she's like, "Why don't you just watch the movie?" I was like, "Because I'm not sure I want to watch it, and in 20 minutes I can have watched it."
Yeah, exactly.
So have fun with your YouTube, rabbit holes. But anyways, don't be afraid to use it, man. And I find it's just such an accessible way to explore. There's so much content on there that I think any game I've ever been interested in, I can find someone who's talked about it on YouTube to get me a little idea about it.
Right. Yeah. So this is going to be my last point that I want to add. Don't be afraid to try something new. Like if D&D is feeling a little stale for you in your gaming group, try something new. Just even do a one-shot. Just a one-shot. And then you can go back to D&D if you guys don't love it. But just try something because I feel like there's so many interesting games out there that are, different than D&D. It might be a 1920s investigation. It might be a sci-fi game that you want to play. It might be a horror game that you decide you want to play. Maybe it's a different kind of fantasy. Maybe there's just so many different things to do. I love branching out. I love seeing what else is out there. We seem to come back to D&D for some of our campaigns, Jason, which is fine. But in the interim, we love playing these little one-shots and doing little things and seeing how we like different systems. Because you know what they say, variety is the spice of life.
Yep, absolutely. I'm going to second everything you said. Please try other systems. It is fun. And it will give you experience and exposure, and you might find something that just tickles your fancy for a little while.
And worst case scenario, you learn to become a better RPG player because you've tried something different. That when you go back to your tried and true, D&D, you're just a better RPG player. Maybe or game or dungeon master because now you know how to run investigations better because you did an investigation RPG. Or maybe you know how to inject horror a little bit into your D&D campaign because you ran a horror campaign or maybe a horror 3-shot arc that you did, and now you can bring those tools to your bigger campaign. So, spread out, enjoy, and try some of these different things. I think a lot of some of these little indie publishers or lesser known ones are putting out some really good stuff too, really, really creative, good stuff.
Yep.
So check it out. I think that's it for the show, Jason. Unless you got something else you want
Yeah,
to
man.
add.
No, that's it.
Well, so for all of you that made it to the end, I'm going to give you one last hint. What could that be, Jason?
Man, I just so many different things that
Just
sound.
like so polyhedral.
I-
So polyhedral. But no, seriously, everybody who made it to the end, thank you so much for listening. Make sure, please, if you like what we're doing, give us a like, give us a review on iTunes, give us a review on Spotify or on Google. Hitting those 4 or 5 stars or 1 star, even if you really don't like it. I guess if you're going to give us 1 star, please don't do that. But
right.
but if
Thank
you're going to give
you,
us,
and move along.
Yeah.
Move along.
If you are going to give us a good review, please do it because that helps us get listened to by other people and recommended to that. That's how these algorithms work, and we'd love more people to just get involved and listen to us. So thank you so much for being a part of this journey with us. We love having you listen to it, and feel free to reach out to us on social media. So thank you very much, and have a good night.
See ya.